We now move on to an app of the week, and this time Anna presents RSS Reader.
The app of the week is an RSS reader called RSS Reader by Niklas Baudy. This demo is pretty long. It's about 25 minutes long, and it's a little slow. I was trying something new, and I'm not sure that it worked. So you may want to speed up your playback device. The app itself is very accessible. It has great features, including its own podcast player. The way individual items appear on your feed depends on how they're set up. For example, the Google blog I mention in this demo takes up a lot of space, and to get past the entries, you need to swipe up with 2 fingers a couple of times. RSS Reader by Niklas Baudy is an app for keeping up with blogs, podcasts, and other internet content that uses really simple syndication, better known as RSS. The UI is clean and simple, and the app overall is very accessible. There are only a few unlabeled buttons, which you won't notice if you have Element ID enabled in TalkBack, and which you can label yourself with TalkBack if you don't have that feature on. The app is free, though you can pay to remove ads and to unlock some features. About the ads, there are 2 types. One type of ad is encountered as you explore the screen. Across the very bottom of every screen is a narrow band with an ad in it. The other type of ad is encountered when you tap an item in your feed. Sometimes an ad plays before the item you tapped opens. You can exit the ad with one of the back gestures. For TalkBack, this is down, then left, with 1 finger. For Android, this is a short swipe in with 2 fingers from either the right or left edge of the screen. You have to wait for part of the ad to play before the back gesture is effective. For me, the Android gesture tends to work better than the TalkBack gesture in this app, but your mileage may vary. The cost of the app is small, about $3 at the time of this recording, so it's easy to support the developer. When you open the app for the first time, the main screen is nearly empty. There's a Navigate Up button in the top left corner.
Navigate Up button.
Maybe buttons for search and settings in the top right corner.
Search. Settings.
And an Add RSS Feed button in the bottom right corner.
Add RSS feed.
The screen may have 1 or 2 more items, but nothing much works until you add a few feeds. Let's add a couple of RSS feeds before we explore more of the app.
RSS Reader. RSS Reader. Navigate Up button. Refreshed successfully. RSS Reader.
To add the first couple of feeds, tap the Add RSS Feed button in the bottom right corner. The screen that opens has an edit box in the bottom half with a Create button below and to the right of the edit box. Tap the edit box to enter text, write an RSS feed URL, then tap Create. I'm going to add the RSS URL for Top Tech Tidbits. The URL is https://feeds.feedblitz.com. facebook.com/top tech tidbits. We're going to enter all of that except for the HTTPS:/.
Add RSS feed button out of RSS feed URL. RSS feed URL edit box.
Tapping the edit box.
Showing Braille keyboard. F E ed S period F E ed B L I T C period C O M dots / T O page T E C H T I D B I T S feeds.feedblitz.com/top tech tidbits. Keyboard hidden.
Tap Create near the bottom right corner.
Create.
If you're successful, the app lets you know
RSS Reader. Successfully added RSS Reader. Top Tech Tidbits for Thursday email newsletter, a Mind Vault Solutions Limited. Publication.
and you can swipe or explore to hear more information about the blog, podcast, etc.
The Top Tech Tidbits for Thursday email newsletter is your #1 online resource for current news and trends in adaptive technology.
The Add RSS Feed button disappears from the bottom right corner of the main screen after a few feeds have been added. If this happens before you're done adding feeds, tap Navigate Up in the top left corner, then tap Add RSS Feed, which is about halfway down the list of options that appears along the left edge of the screen. When you do, the screen that opens has a list of your feeds with an Add RSS Feed button in the bottom right corner. Tap this button to keep adding feeds exactly as we did before. Once you finish adding the first few RSS feeds, leave the app alone for a while to give it time to download information about past entries or episodes. I've also added feeds for the Eyes on Success podcast, the Cool Blind Tech site, and the Google Outreach Initiatives blog.
Eyes on Success radio show podcast. A weekly, half-hour radio show podcast covering a wide variety of topics of interest to the visually impaired. Cool Blind Tech. Your source for the best assistive tech news, reviews and interviews from top blind and low vision experts. An entertaining and trustworthy discussion on emerging technologies. Outreach and initiatives. Top Tech Tidbits for Thursday email newsletter, a Mind Vault Solutions Limited. Publication.
Now that we have some RSS feeds set up, let's open the app to explore the main screen. At the top, Navigate Up is in the top left corner,
Navigate Up button.
and Search and Settings are in the top right corner.
Search. Settings.
Right below that is a row of controls. From left to right, they are
Mark all items as read button.
Mark all items as read,
Read 55.
the number of items being displayed,
Filter button.
a filter button, and two unlabeled buttons, which are Jump to Top and Jump to Bottom.
Scroll to top button. Scroll to bottom button.
These controls are all pretty self-explanatory. The only one we'll go into is the filter button. Let's tap the filter button.
Filter button. RSS Reader. Navigate Up button.
The screen that opens lets you determine what is displayed on the main screen. The filter screen has a Navigate Up button in the top left corner and groups filter options into categories, which should probably be marked as headings. These categories are by feed, of type, and only from. Under by feed is a vertical list of the feeds you have.
By feeds. Cool Blind Tech button in list. Eyes on Success Radio Show podcast button. Outreach and Initiatives button. Top Tech Tidbits for Thursday email newsletter, A Mind Vault Solutions Limited. Publication button.
Along the right edge of the screen, at the level of by feed, are two unlabeled buttons side by side. They are Select All and Deselect All.
Select All button. Deselect All button.
Under Of Type
out of list.
are two rows of buttons. They are
Unread button.
Unread,
Selected, read button.
Read,
Favorites button.
Favorites,
Downloaded button.
Downloaded,
All button.
All,
Ascending or descending button out of list.
and an ascending/descending toggle, which is unlabeled. Under Only From is a grid of time frames that range from last hour to last month.
Only from. Today button in list. Yesterday button. This week button. Last week button. This month button. Last month button. Last hour button. Last 6 hours button. Last 12 hours button. Last 24 hours button. Last 48 hours button.
Below the grid, an Apply button is along the left edge of the screen. You need to tap Apply for your filter selections to take effect. When you tap Apply,
Apply button out of list. RSS Reader. Filter button.
the filter screen closes. We are back on the main screen. Let's continue exploring it. Below the row of controls that starts with Mark All Items as Read and ends with Jump to Top and Jump to Bottom is your RSS feed. This is a vertical list of your content. For each item, you hear a snippet of information about the episode or post.
1612 Blind Active Duty Police Officer, Part 1 Mar. 2016 Show notes Marlon Periajo was working as a policeman when he lost his vision. Hosts Nancy and Peter Torpy talk with him about how he successfully navigated the transition, learned to accommodate to his new situation, and how it impacted his relationship with. Continue reading 1612 Blind Active Duty Police Officer, Part 1 Mar. 2016 Right Pointing Arrow, Eyes on Success Radio Show Podcast, Wednesday, March 16, 4:30 a.m., in list. A Matter of Impact, October updates from Google.org. YouTube coming out with new accessibility features. YouTube is improving video accessibility for both viewers with vision loss and other languages. The company is testing the option of adding multiple audio tracks to videos. This will help with international viewers, of course, but it should also enable descriptive audio for people with some vision to no vision. This arrives sometime in the post. YouTube coming out with new accessibility features appeared first on Cool Blind Tech.
Expect each entry to take up about a third of the screen. Along the right edge for each is a set of buttons stacked vertically. They are a red toggle
Read toggle button.
for marking an item as read or unread, a star toggle
Star toggle button.
for favoriting or unfavoriting an item, and
Share button.
a share button. The two toggles being unlabeled. Some items may have other controls across the bottom of the entry. For example,
Audio 22 button.
for podcast episodes, the audio button is along the left edge of the screen, right above the title of the next item. To read an entry in its entirety, just tap the title. Let's go back to the article about YouTube.
YouTube coming out with new accessibility features. Cool Blind Tech Web View.
We have buttons for open and share in the top right corner.
Open. Share.
You can use talkback gestures and reading controls to read and navigate the article.
October 18th, 2021. 7:05 a.m. YouTube is improving video accessibility for both viewers with vision loss and other languages. Controls. Links. Windows. Spoken language. Characters. Words. YouTube is improving video accessible 4 lines. Vision loss and other language. Company is testing the adding multiple audio tracks.
To listen to a podcast episode, let's find a podcast.
2134 Navigating Indoors with the Clue app August 18, 2021 Eyes on Success Radio Show podcast. Yesterday, 4:54 p.m.
Tap its audio button, which is in the bottom left corner of the entry on your main feed.
Audio 13.8 megabytes 2842 button.
This starts the download, which you can track.
32% button. 53% button. 98% button.
When the download completes, tap the audio button again.
RSS Reader. Navigate up button out of list.
Hello and welcome to Eyes on Success, a weekly program covering a wide variety of topics of interest to people with vision loss.
To start playback. While the file is playing, you can use the player controls, rewind, play pause, and fast forward, which are arranged in a row in the general center of the screen.
Rewind 5 seconds button. Play button. Fast forward 15 seconds button.
Near the bottom of the screen is a seek slider, which you can use to move through the recording in increments of 1 minute and 25 seconds. Touch the slider to move focus to it.
022 slider.
Then repeatedly tap one of the hardware volume buttons.
148 slider. 314 slider.
Or use the left then right or right then left gesture.
148 slider. 022 slider.
To change the value of the slider. There's also a settings button in the bottom right corner of the player screen.
Settings button.
To let you adjust.
Pop-up window. Speed, normal, in list. Audio, auto.
Playback speed. And in the top right corner is the delete button, which you can use when you're done listening to the episode. Let's move on to settings for the app in general. On the main screen,
Settings.
tap Settings in the top right corner.
RSS Reader. Navigate up button. Settings.
Most items are self-explanatory, so we won't spend a lot of time on them. Options are presented as a vertical list and grouped under the headings Ads, General, Background Sync, OPML, RSS Reader, and About. We'll go through the first two groups only.
Ads, heading, in list.
Ads is where you can remove ads for a small fee.
Remove ads. General, heading.
General has the following options.
Refresh on startup, checked, checkbox.
Refresh on startup. This tells the app to look for new content when you open it.
Show, mark all items as read, button, checked, checkbox.
Show marked all items as read. This displays or hides the mark all items as read button, which is on the main screen below Navigate Up.
Mark items as read when scrolling, not checked, checkbox.
Mark items as read when scrolling. By default, items are considered read when you're just scrolling through the feed, even when you don't open a post or play a podcast episode. This is fine if you're a headlines kind of person. Uncheck this if you actually want to read your content.
Use in-app browser, checked, checkbox.
Use in-app browser. The app has its own browser, which is accessible. You can uncheck this if you'd like to use something else that is installed on your phone.
Show images when available, checked, checkbox.
Show images when available. The app allows you to decide whether to download images or not.
RSS Reader font size.
RSS Reader font size. You have 7 options from super small to super large.
Languages.
Languages. The app has been translated into a dozen or so, mostly European languages. The developer includes information about contacting him to translate the app into other languages.
Night mode, yes.
Night mode. This makes it possible for the app to adjust the screen to night mode along with the system. We'll stop there since the rest of the app settings are pretty straightforward. Let's check out a few other useful items. From the main screen, tap Navigate Up.
Navigate up button.
Which is in the top left corner.
Menu. Unread. 762 in list.
When you do, a series of options appears along the left edge of the screen. They are Unread,
Read. 55.
Read,
Favorites. 1.
Favorites,
Downloaded. 5.
Downloads, and a list of your feeds.
Cool Blind Tech. 373 400 thirds. Eyes on Success Radio Show Podcast. 282 300ths. Outreach and Initiatives. 25-30 seconds. Top Tech Tidbits for Thursday Email Newsletter. A Mind Vault Solutions Limited.
Each of these is followed by a number, which indicates how many are available. And tapping any one of these options displays those items. The last 3 controls on this screen are Add RSS Feed,
Add RSS feed.
which is how you can add 1 feed at a time, and
Import OPML file.
Import OPML files and
Export OPML file.
Export OPML files, which is how you add or share lots of RSS feeds at one time. At the beginning of this tutorial, we added an RSS URL that is easy to remember. Other URLs, like the one for this podcast, are trickier. To add an RSS URL that is hard to remember, you can use your browser's share feature if the website doesn't have a copy link already. In general, the process is to first launch the browser, search for the podcast homepage, and locate the URL for the RSS feed. Next, in your browser, tap Share, which might be in More Options or Menu. I'm going to show you how to add the link for this podcast using Chrome.
Chrome. Home button. Google Doodle. Halloween 2021 in list.
Then in the edit box, I'm going to type blindandroidusers.com.
Search or type web address. Edit box. Showing Braille keyboard. B L N D and R O I D U S S. Period. C O M. Submitting text. blindandroidusers.com. 5%. Progress bar. Keyboard hidden. Home button out of 78%. The home of the Blind Android Users podcasts and articles web view.
For me, the mobile website is hard to use, so I'm tapping More Options in the top right corner.
More options button. Pop-up window.
Then
Turn on request desktop site.
turn on Request Desktop Site.
5%. Progress bar. Chrome. The home of the Blind Android Users podcasts and articles web view. 80%. Dialog opened.
For me, this version of the website is much easier to use. I'm going to go to the podcast link.
Current page. Skip to content. Quick links. Heading 2. Subscribe. Link. Feedback. Link. Social media. Link. Podcast. Link. Column 4. Podcast. Heading 2. Out of table.
Now I'm going to locate the Anchor Wave link.
Blind Android Users Podcast Episode 46. It's News Time. By Blind Android Users Podcast. Multi-page view. Skip to main content. Blind Android Users Podcast. Blind Android Users Podcast. Button. Anchor logo wave symbol. Link.
Excellent.
Blind Android Users. 79%. Blind Android Users Podcast. A podcast on Anchor. Web view.
I'm going to locate and tap the More Platforms option.
Listen on Spotify. Link. More platforms. Button. Dialog. Multi-page view.
Now I'm going to locate and tap the Copy RSS Link item.
This podcast is available on 3. Heading 5. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher. Copy RSS. Link.
Ah, there it is. Copy RSS.
Blind Android Users Podcast, a podcast on Anchor. Web view.
Now let's go back to RSS Reader.
Home screen 2 of 3. RSS Reader has 1 notification. RSS Reader. Export OPML file in list.
And let's tap Add RSS Feed.
Add RSS feed. RSS Reader. Navigate up, button, out of list.
Here we have our list of feeds with the Add RSS Reader button in the bottom right corner, so we need to tap that.
Add RSS feed, button. RSS feed URL. RSS feed URL, edit box.
Now let's paste. I can triple tap with 3 fingers, which is what I'm going to do, or I can use the TalkBack editing menu.
Pasted, https://anchor.fm/s/4495/podcast/RSS. RSS Reader pasted from your clipboard.
Beautiful. Okay. Tap Create in the bottom right corner, below the edit box.
Create. RSS Reader. RSS Reader. Add RSS feed, button. 6.
Oops, I touched the screen just as it started to say success. So let's make sure it's there.
At Blind Android Users, we strive to make using Android as easy as possible for every blind person who's starting the Android journey. We bridge the dividing gap that stands between blind people, both new to Android and those familiar with the platform, on the use of the platform and revealing what makes the OS the platform to be on. The Blind Android podcast believes that no blind person should be struggling with their Android device. Thus, we have determined to embark on a mission of understanding Android from a blindness perspective as easy as a child's play.
Enjoy the Android Users Podcast on your new RSS Reader.
Thank you so much, Anna, for that review. And for those of you that did not listen to our episode 46, I think that was when we do our newsreaders, and you could find similar apps there that we discussed in that episode.